This is a short video to provide some context for the readings that you're going to be doing for week two. Now that you're getting familiar with the D2L, you might just want to jump straight to the syllabus, um, and you'll be able to open the readings from there. So during week two, for Monday, you're going to be reading Bartleby the Scrivener. That was published in 1853 by Herman Melville, and Herman Melville of Moby Dick fame. The Story of an Hour, published by Kate Chopin of The Awakening fame, and this was published in 1894, I think, in Vogue. And Sweat by Zora Neale Hurston, and this one's going to pop up as a PDF. And this was published in 1926. Zora Neale Hurston's famous for Their Eyes Were Watching God. Okay, so let's go through these. The idea is I wanted to give you a range to show the development here of the American short story from Romanticism, clearly evidenced by Bartleby the Scrivener, toward a more realist fiction. And basically the time of realism, 1890s through the 1920s until modernism really starts to kind of kick in. But the idea is that Melville's a really interesting middle ground here, because there's still the romantic unknowability. We're not really sure what motivates Bartleby's behavior, why he prefers not to work, although we do get a sense of it at the ending of the story. But what makes it also realist is that Melville is talking about the soullessness of Wall Street, of American capitalism, and looking ahead actually to industrialization. And really it's with the advent of the industrial age that a lot of the realist fiction starts to kind of, very seriously think about the return to nature. But overarchingly, we have a lot of literature talking about America's social problems. In Kate Chopin's The Story of an Hour, we start to see a literature by women that takes up the question about women's role in society. And, this is 25 years before the ratification of women's vote. But what you're getting is a sense of a questioning of the rights that women have, the rights to own property, but also the rights to have divorce. The romantic vein is going to be seen throughout all of American literature, and always we will be asked to consider what motivates the characters. With Zora Neale Hurston actually studied anthropology, and she was very invested in writing about real people and capturing the language of real people. And I think she's talking about a place called Evanston in Florida, basically an African-American community that isolated itself from the United States. And again, we see the issue of women's rights, or the lack thereof, and of women's disempowerment in the story. But we're also getting a broader sense of communities and the responsibility of communities to one another, to larger laws and things like that. So these are the things to look out for in the next section of reading. What is interesting to note is that these authors, for the fact that copyright laws get into place, nobody's really making any money. Melville doesn't even really get read in the 19th century. It's not until after World War II that there's a Melville resurgence. He died thinking that nobody really cared about his literature. And the reason, it's a theory, but the reason that people say that his literature came back was because he had written so well about greed and in Moby Dick this sort of obsessiveness in American culture to stomp out, and so after the Nazi regime and after World War II brings this sense of danger of letting people and power go too far. The idea is that we as Americans started to go back to Melville and see how this was for foreshadowing and looking forward to this. Um, Kate Chopin was completely panned in her time as a terrible author, largely because the critics were men who were saying that she wasn't a great author. And there was a power, there was a problem with power there. She's since been heralded as a wonderful author. And finally, Zora Neale Hurston dies in abject poverty, even though her works are just amazing, and now people have gone back and read her extensively. But yeah, so much of this literature, it didn't really make sense to people at the time. And it's not until after the 1960s, really, that we start going back and realizing how great it all is. Okay, so that's my lecture for week 2. I hope you enjoy reading the literature, and I am looking forward to reading your responses to it.